What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you guys another video. Today I'm bringing you guys a video on Kishiryu Sentai Ryusoulger, and I'll also be doing a video for Power Rangers later, but I wanted to give you guys that heads up now. So, this is for episodes 11 through 13 of Kishiryu Sentai Ryusoulger. And these episodes were pretty good. These episodes introduced a new mecha, and also introduced a returning villain, and also some important characters and a new form for one of the Ryusoulgers to use. At least right now, it's one. We don't know for sure if other characters will ever get to use it, but as of now, is one character that's using it. So let me get into that. So the episode for episode 11, it's called The Quiz King of Flames, and the episode focuses on the introduction of the new Dino Knight, which is Dime Volcano. Dime Volcano is Ko's second mecha, and he's a pretty interesting one. He can talk as well as Tiramigo, and he's a pretty enjoyable one. He starts off as very aggressive, but he gets more kinder and sweeter over time, and becomes less of a tough character and more of a gentle one. But it does take some time, and also just convincing him to be on their side, so that's important as well. And he's all about asking questions and stuff like that, and so that's something interesting. So he is also in the situation where he struggles with the fact that many times over, people do not want to approach him because they're scared of him because of how he looks and because of his aggressive appearance, and yet he's actually supposed to be very sweet. And the thing is that the Ryusoulgers end up learning about him from Yui's father, and they end up going to answer his questions and see if maybe if he would accept them or whatever. And what happens is that Melt is the one that's put in charge of it because he's like the smarter one, the one that typically has to do a lot more complex thinking. And he ends up trying to go about doing so, but he struggles with the question that he asks, which has to do with what floods on top and floods and burns below, and he doesn't really understand the question, and just in general, it just doesn't go over well. So eventually, Dime Volcano attacks them with a fireball attack, and then following this, we end up also seeing a new Minister, which is the Shen Minister, which is a shape-shifting sea monster. And the sea monster has the ability to also create illusions. That's his attack ability. So he can basically make you think that you're attacking something that you're not. So in this case, he uses it to convince the Ryusoulgers that when they're in this kind of cloudy area, like a smoke screen effect that he creates, basically any of the teammates are drone soldiers, when in reality they're actually their teammates, and so it's this nasty trick that he pulls on them a bunch. So what does end up happening is that they have to deal with that a bunch of times, and they know that they're not in the best shape for it. And we end up also learning about this boy named Horuto, and Horuto is this boy that currently can't see. Like, he's actually I believe he's either blind or something else having to do with that he's supposed to get his vision corrected. And the thing is that the Minister, I forget if it comes from him or not. I believe it might. Actually, I think it comes from initially, I believe it comes from Dime Volcano, but the Shen Minister really comes from a monster in the 12th episode. It comes from another person in the 12th episode. So anyway, what does end up happening is that Dime Volcano ends up he doesn't trust them at first, but eventually Ko convinces Dime Volcano to trust them. Eventually, he answers his questions, and he explains the fact that we end up learning that the reason why he acts the way he does regarding being a little aggressive and stuff like that is because no one really cares for him. No one really he's like very lonely, and the thing is that the only person that's ever showed any affection or concern for him was this boy named Haruto. And the thing is that when the boy's sight is fixed, he's worried that he may have nobody that will care for him, and so that's what he's convinced himself. And what happens is that Ko has to convince him that he cares about him, and so he does so. And eventually, he ends up getting the real soul for him, which is good. And so what does end up happening. And then what happens is that okay, sorry about that. There was some advertisement on my screen right now because I'm actually looking at my computer because I needed to verify certain details. So then what happens is that they eventually end up gaining his trust. We end up seeing that Ko ends up gaining a new form, which is the Mera form. So he gains extra power from that and is really strong now, and it's a really useful form that's different from the forms that he gets for using the regular souls. And again, it's likely that this will only be used by him, but it could be used by other characters. But basically, that's what happens in this episode. They manage to fight the Minosaur. They don't defeat it, but they manage to fight it. Eventually, the boy ends up seeing Daim Volcano for the first time for real, and he isn't scared of him. He thinks he's cool. He actually really likes him, and Daim Volcano really cares for, now appreciates Ko, and actually is glad that Haruto does care for him because he was his buddy. So then in episode 12, the episode is called Scorching Illusion. So this episode continues it with the illusions, except in this case the illusions are a little bit different. And the story here is that basically, Daim Volcano was introduced in episode 11. So this time what happens is that Weisel ends up going after another person, and this person's one that could resist Daim Volcano's flames, except you would think that the effect would be something where he can actually resist it, in the sense is that his ability would resist it. It does, but not in the way that you would expect it to. Let's just say that much. And I'll explain what I mean a little bit. So he ends up finding this person from a fire academy that Yui apparently knows from grade school or something like that, or who was in high school with her, and always wanted to be a movie director, but in this case actually became someone into a fire academy where he'll eventually become a fireman. But what happens is that he's doing this job that he doesn't like, and he ends up passing out from doing the job that he's doing. And what happens is that he is targeted by the Minosaur, and the Minosaur comes back, and we end up having the Shen Minosaur this time again. We end up seeing as well that eventually the Shen Minosaur ends up turning big, and I'm just trying to verify. Oh yeah, and what happens is that they end up having it where Tiramigo is jealous of Daim Volcano because everyone's giving Daim Volcano a lot of attention, and he feels left out. And what happens is that the Minosaur ends up causing that trouble. So then what happens is that we end up seeing Tiramigo try to fight the Minosaur when it grows big. We also end up seeing eventually that they have to summon Daim Volcano because Tiramigo doesn't do well against the Minosaur. And what happens is that the Minosaur uses his ability, and his illusion ability is different because it's more love-based, and it ends up making it so that they see the one that they love. And in this case, it ends up being this fake version of a female Daim Volcano, which looks pretty interesting. And the thing is that it's really supposed to be the Minosaur, but what he hears and sees is different from what's really there. So that's important to keep in mind. And what happens is that Daim Volcano is conflicted with himself, and eventually they do manage to deal with it, and they actually end up using the combined form of Tiramigo and Daim Volcano, which is Kishiryu Daim Volcano, which is the combination of Tiramigo and Daim Volcano combined together, and they managed to defeat the Shen Minosaur. So that's good. In this episode as well, we end up having it where, Yui tries to convince the guy to become a movie director and not stay in the fire academy. We also end up seeing in this episode towards the end that apparently Guy Sorg is back. Guy Sorg was in the Super Sentai Strongest Battle special 4-episode part series that happened during February and March. And he's returning now, and apparently Weisel knows who he is. Creon doesn't, and he does return again in episode 13. We don't know if he'll be back in episode 14, but we do know that he should become a regularly reoccurring character for at least some time now. We don't know how long, but we know for sure it'll last some time. And again, Guy Sorg is very similar to Degranio, I believe. No, not Degranio. Wrong character. I'm forgetting his name right now. Is the character from Kyroger. Different character entirely what I'm thinking of. Anyway, the point is that we end up seeing him introduced. In episode 13, though, we have the episode that's called The Prime Minister is of the Ryusoulger tribe. Yes. So this episode is pretty interesting. This episode introduces us to a new minister and also a new character that is from the Ryusoulger tribe, and it actually does turn out to be the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is this woman who apparently, being a member of the Ryusoulger tribe, implies that, you live a very long life typically, and not just like, a normal human life, like where you could live 300 plus years and you won't age at all. And so the thing is that in this case, she is the Prime Minister, and she has this husband that that we end up learning about, and we'll get into that. But the thing is that at first she ends up talking to Bomba and TOA, and they end up finding out that she is the that she's from the Ryusoulger tribe, although technically Bomba knows her. We end up finding that out, but TOA doesn't. And the thing is that the Prime Minister basically makes this deal with them that if they let the Minister grow to full size, then she'll tell them about their master. And the thing is that that would imply that she would die, and we're like, and you would think, why would she want to die? And we'll get into that. So what does end up happening is that, they end up having to fight the Minister, which this Minister this time is called the, what's it called? The Basilisk Minister, which is a pretty interesting one. His ability is that he makes people tell the truth. He makes them tell their true feelings about things. And so it could be a dangerous thing, obviously, to find out what people really think about you and all that. So that's really what they're going for. And they've done this kind of thing before, but it is an interesting choice. And so what happens is they have to deal with that, and TOA ends up telling the truth about what his feelings are about the situation, which he wants to actually get rid of he wants the Minister to grow to full size so that they can find out their master. But Bomba doesn't think that's right, because he thinks that they could get rid of the Minister without having to do that and then make her tell the truth. And so the thing is that there is that conflict, and he ends up finding more about, Bomba ends up finding more about the Prime Minister, and we end up learning at the hospital that the real reason why the Minister, why she wants the Minister to grow to full size is because apparently her husband is aging and she's not, because she's from the Ryusoulger tribe. He's likely a regular human, and so as he dies, she lives, and she doesn't like to feel that she's gonna outlive her husband. She would prefer it if she wouldn't have to continue to live and have to live without the one that she loved and all that. And it's an understandable thing. It is kind of crazy in reality, though, in the sense is that she's doing this for the sake of doing that, although at the same time she's also leading to so many lives potentially dying. So it's really problematic. And the thing is that they do end up dealing with the Minister. The Minister, we end up seeing that the Ryusoulgers end up fighting him. And what happens is that eventually there's this sweet conversation between Tiramigo and Dime Volcano and the Ryusoulgers about how, you know, they all care about each other and all that. And it's just a very kind conversation, which Dime Volcano really does end up caring about them, which is nice. Eventually they do end up using the Kishiryu Dime Volcano combination again, and they end up finishing off the Minister, which is great. We also end up seeing at one point that the Prime Minister is spoken to by Gaisorg, which implies that she knows who Gaisorg is and Gaisorg knows who she is. So that's also very interesting to note, because clearly she knows something that we don't know, and whoever is inside the armor at this time is someone that she actually can relate to. Now, who do I think it might be? My guesses are, based on what was revealed in this episode alone, and this could be entirely wrong, is that that person that's in the armor right now is actually Bomba and TOA's master. That's what I would guess. Again, I don't know if that's 100% fact, but based on what we know so far, that would be my logical guess as to who is inside the armor at this moment, that it's their master. It might be someone entirely different. If it is their master, that would be cool, and that would also potentially lead to maybe like a good form of Gaisorg happening. I mean, you never know, it could happen. That'd be nice, but nothing is official as of now. So anyway, what does end up happening is that after the Minister is destroyed, she does end up living, the Prime Minister, and she ends up actually escaping because of she ends up finding out what she should do, and she's sad that she wasn't able to die with her husband, but at the same time it's unclear as to where things will go from here. All we know for sure is that they will search for her, the Ryusoulgers, and they will likely find her at some point. It's just unclear as to when that will be. Otherwise, not too much else. Episode 14, we got the preview for that, and that is supposed to be the episode that will introduce Ryusoul Gold, which I'm looking forward to, and that will introduce his mecha and his new form, because he's getting one similar to how Ko got the Mera form. He gets the Biri form. So we'll see that we'll see the Biri form, and we'll see him and his changer and also his additional weapon in the next episode, but we won't see his mecha likely till episode 15 or so. That's what I would guess, just because of the fact that the preview doesn't even show off his mecha. So more likely than not, it's just introducing his character and not introducing his mecha. Episode 14 also shows that there's going to be a new general. So we've seen Weisel and we've seen Tank Joe and Kuron. The new general is going to be called what's the new general? Gaichurus. So again, we don't know his story, we don't know Weisel's story, we don't know if one will be wiped out before the other. My guesses are what will likely happen is that either Weisel or Gaichurus or both will end up being wiped out by the combination of Kishiryu and Ryusoul Gold's mecha. So just keep that in mind, and stay tuned for more about that. So that's my guess, because typically when they introduce new combinations, especially when a new teammate's introduced and they combine forces, that typically leads to the end of a major general or a boss around the time that the two join forces and do a combination. So keep that in mind, and I would not be surprised if that is the case. Otherwise, that's about it for me, guys. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think. Did you guys enjoy this video? And what do you guys think for the future of the show? And are you looking forward to Ryusoul Gold being introduced next episode? Otherwise, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So, tuned in, guys. I'm Chrissy771, and goodbye.